But nevertheless, that's how, because that's what I was going to say earlier, is we couldn't figure out in what context, how, what reason were they going to present the backstage footage from the security camera at Wembley Stadium of Punk choking Jack Perry out? In what, how can they even tie this? Where did this come from? Well, we knew where it came from. It came from their still mad, freaking out, jumping up and down, stamping their feet and throwing their baby rattle out of the crib about the interview that Punk did. But how were they going to justify this in their program, present this in their program as if it had anything to do with anything going on in their world on TV? That's our question. And apparently the answer is that when they had done that package on FTR and the Little Buckies and their big rivalry, and then they come to the backstage, the monitor area. There's some production area because they couldn't do this. I'm talking about Maddie and Nikki. They couldn't do this in one take because I don't even know if they can look at each other and keep a straight face, dressed in those flamboyant suits as they are, with that ridiculous facial hair colored with a Sharpie and the fake tough guy demeanor and the cheesiness of the whole presentation. But they're sitting in front of monitors so they could do as many takes of this as they needed to until they got it right. And probably also that way they didn't have to come to Charleston, West Virginia, be there in person.
No, they were there.
Were they there? Well, son of a bitch.
They were in the angle right after this. Did you not watch that?
Oh, yeah, they were, weren't they? Yeah, I forgot. Well, because it was Okada. I was trying to look away from that, too. But anyway, they're sitting there on the pre-tape, and they draw the comparison to set up the reason why they're going to play this security footage is because it happened at Wembley, and that's the last time that they wrestled FTR, and because they're also EVPs, and they had this backstage incident involving two individuals, the scapegoat, Jack Perry, who's a lovable kid, and the other individual who, quote unquote, tried to make the entire show about himself. I can't make this up. That distracted us, and we couldn't, get ready, and we couldn't pray before our match, and we lost because we were distracted because of this incredible incident.
Because our friend mouthed off and someone thought that was reason enough to try to make him stop.
And also because they weren't even in the fucking video. There was nothing of them in the, why were they distracted? Somebody say, hey, Punk just put a face lock on Jack. Ah, shit. All right, well, we got to put our match together. What the fuck did they need to do? But the point is, that's how they figured that it was going to be a good idea to show this footage and to tease to people who didn't know what the fuck that they were talking about, in some cases, footage of Punk on the TV just to get the curiosity from the audience that they've already got watching. And that's how they tied it into their angle with for the tag team title tournament final. So that's the reason they give. And they say, well, this individual, because they can't say his name. This individual is good friends with FTR. Are they the masterminds behind this entire thing? Which maybe there was something to that. But then they said, no, because they had to do the supposed pointed elbow in the ribs remark that landed flat because they don't have a goddamn wit, much less a sarcastic wit. Where Maddie said, no, you can't spread rumors. That's very unprofessional. And then they think you could tell that I'm not sure who behind the camera, who in the truck. I would have to think Tony thought this, but they thought that this was good stuff that they were doing. And they were thrown off their games by having to deal with this stuff and got beat by FTR, but there should be an asterisk by that. And somehow the incident threatened to take down their biggest show of all time, except it didn't. And then they just show the goddamn security camera. And before we get to what that entails, Brian, any thoughts of their performance up until now?
One of the biggest problems with the Bucks in general has been their inability to understand how bad their stuff comes across. From the purely deadly school of acting, these two. It's not good. Again, you know there's some truth in what they're saying while they're working here, while they're trying to make this about FTR, who also are never there when Punk is in any of these altercations. FTR is back at the hotel or in their locker room or whatever. But they're obsessed with him. They always try to make it like Punk did this, Punk did that. We've seen the last 2 weeks who's obsessed with CM Punk. It's Tony Khan and the Young Bucks. Why is Edge doing a promo about how great the place is? Because Punk did an interview on Ariel Helwani's podcast.
Now, be fair, when you compare numbers these days, Ariel's ahead.
The point of the matter is, what are they referring to? What are they addressing? And why? And they've made CM Punk bigger. They've somehow managed to make him bigger and look even better. And well, I'll save my comments about the actual footage, but again, the big takeaway, like we started this show, these guys apparently wanted to do this for a while. They thought this would help Jack Perry somehow. I don't know how. By the way, they call him the scapegoat. He calls himself the scapegoat. Who exactly pointed the finger at? Who's made him the scapegoat? Is it Tony? Is it Punk? Like, whose scapegoat is he?
Oh, well, I think that it's Tony, because Tony got mad at Jungle Boy there for costing him his biggest star, and so he sent Jungle Boy home to collect his money where he wouldn't have to talk to him. And, you know, the Lollipop Guild, they like to all be together. I'm sure the Buckaroos have wanted to do some trampoline workouts with their boy Jack, but he hadn't been around for him to. So he was made the scapegoat. It was all Punk's fault. He tried to come in here and be all goddamn business and shit.
Again, these guys had time. You have to think there was someone in one of their ears saying, this is a bad idea. This doesn't help you. This makes you guys smaller. And we'll talk about the reaction they got in the angle after this, but that was the setup to the video, and it's a video everyone has wanted to see ever since we heard there was footage.